Hi guys, welcome to 10.3. This is geometric sequences and series. We talked last week about arithmetic sequences and series. For arithmetic sequences and series, that's when we added or subtracted to our first term to come up with the next term. So each term had a common difference. So geometric sequences are when we multiply or divide by a factor to come up with our next terms. And we call that factor that we multiply or divide by the common ratio. All right, let's see, the other thing, arithmetic sequences, the graph of those guys would be linear, whereas the graph of a geometric sequence would look like an exponential graph. So let's go ahead and start looking at some sequences and start coming up with our common ratio. So for the ratio for the first one here, to find your ratio, you take your second term and divide it by the term that came before it. Do you have to use those two terms? No. I could choose this term and divide it by the term that came before it. That ratio is always going to be constant. If that ratio is not the same each time, then it's not a geometric sequence. So when we divide 9 by -6, we get -1.5. So to come up with my next term in the sequence, it's going to be -13.5 times -1.5, and that gives me 20.25. The next term is going to be 20.25 times -1.5. That'll be -30.375. And my next term is going to be -30.375 times -1.5, and that'll be 45.5625. And so on and so forth. All right, let's look at the next one. Again, to find that common ratio, oops, I did these out of order during class. To find our next ratio, we are going to take any term and divide it by the term that came before it. So 84 divided by the term before it, which is 24, and that would be 3.5. So each time to come up with the next number, we're going to multiply the term by 3.5. So my next term would be 294 times 3.5, which is 1029, times 3.5 would be 3601.5. Times 3.5 would be 12,605.25. Again, we take each of these numbers, multiply it by your ratio to come up with the next one. Times the ratio for the next one, times the ratio for the next one. All right, let's go back and look at this problem here. It's a little bit more challenging. It's not too bad if you can start to see the pattern, but if you're not familiar with like 3 cubed, 3 to the 4th, 3 to the 5th, it might be a little bit more challenging. So we can still find the ratio the same way. I'm going to take a term. I'm going to take this term here, -81n plus 243, and I'm going to divide it by the term that came before it, which is 243n minus 729. Now, if it's me, I know these guys are all divisible by 9, so I'm going to start trying to divide them by 3s until I get it as reduced as possible. But if you don't see that, then the way you want to go about this is start factoring. So I look for numbers that are common to both 81 and 243, and when I find that number, I will see that 81 is the biggest number that goes into both of these guys. And while I'm factoring, I'm going to go ahead and factor out that negative. This guy would leave me with n. Because I'm factoring out a negative, this is going to turn to a negative. 243 divided by 81 is 3. Alright. On the bottom, what's common to both 243 and 729 is 243. When you factor that out, you have an n minus 3 left over as well. And so then it's just a matter of reducing. These guys cancel out. 81 goes into 243 3 times, so my common ratio is -1/3. Now that one's a little more challenging. If you're an academic, don't stress it. If you're in pre-P, expect something like that on a test. All right, so there's our common ratio. That means for every term that comes after it, we're going to divide it by a -3. So 27, this is where we're at in the sequence right now. I'm just going to write it down here. My next term that comes after this guy, I'm going to divide this by -3, so that's going to be -9n. -81 divided by -3 would be +3. So the signs change for each term, and they're getting divided by 3. So -9 divided by -3 would be 3n. 3 to, oops, Miss Harris, this is not 3. So negative 81 divided by negative 3 would be 27. There we go. All right, negative 9 divided by n is, divided by negative 3 is 3n. 27 divided by negative 3 is negative 9. And then for the next term, 3 divided by negative 3 is negative n. Negative 9 divided by negative 3 is positive 3. All right, there we go. That is geometric sequences. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to put them in explicit and recursive form.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Right.